You're listening to the Peter Silverman Show on News Talk 1010 CFRB. If you're getting shafted, we need to talk. Call 416-872-1010. Star Talk. It's a free call on Bell Mobility. Or toll free 1-800-561-CFRB.
Welcome back to the Silverman Show. We're talking about condos with Maria Dimakas, who's a condo lawyer. Human rights. One would never expect human rights to enter into real estate, but it does apparently.
It does, and it applies to condos just as much as it applies to other private entities as well. Condominium corporations have an obligation to observe and respect human rights. The Human Rights Code applies to condominium corporations, and boards of directors need to be cognizant and aware of human rights or potential human rights issues in their buildings.
Okay, where does it come in?
Well, let's give you an example. Let's say you have a resident that perhaps is wheelchair bound and they have accessibility issues. Getting into the building, perhaps getting into the parking garage. Condominium corporations may have an obligation, not necessarily will, but may have an obligation to accommodate. And accommodation, of course, is accommodation pursuant to the code. And owners have an expectation, so do residents have an expectation to be accommodated as well.
In an older building, this could be a problem.
Absolutely, it could be a tremendous problem. There are limitations, of course. The legal principle behind it is that the condominium corporation may have an obligation to accommodate up until undue hardship, and that's based on financial and other security and safety reasons that perhaps you may not have to take it to that extent. But human rights is a topic that condominium corporations need to be aware of.
Okay, we have a call here. We have Joy from Toronto. How are you, Joy?
I'm well, thank you, today.
You have a question.
I do, and it'll take me just a moment to explain. We've got two condominiums. They're joined together. I'd like to sell them as one unit, but I understand under the Condominium Corporation Act they have to be sold individually, right or wrong?
If they're two separate legal units, then unless you can sell them to the same person at the same time, you can't join them into a single unit. You can't, in other words, you can't convert two legal units into a single legal unit.
Can the two of them, because we're living in both of them, can that be considered, though, our major home, or only half of it?
Well,
for your, capital gains tax.
Yeah, well, if you're selling it as a single home, you would be selling it in terms of you'd be selling both of your units at the same time. It's a question of whether or not a purchaser is willing to buy two of them.
Yes. Well, there has been demand for it, but I was just wondering as to the taxation.
It's possible. It's possible that you may have some tax implications, but you should probably speak to your accountant about that.
Okay.
Yeah, accountants are the people to speak to.
All right. Thank you for your answer.
That's why you pay them.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Okay, take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye.
The other thing, Maria, that comes up is renovations in condos, which is a war zone.
It is a war zone, absolutely. Especially for older buildings that are undertaking large renovations or cosmetic changes to their common elements. It's always an interesting time for the condominium boards and the owners. Owners are excited, condominium boards are excited, and the problems that usually result out of them tend to be satisfying people's preferences. And how do you please everyone at the same time, which is near to impossible to do. From a condominium board's perspective, what you need to look at are, one, the types of renovations you're making. Are they close to what you currently have and are simply just modifying slight modifications to what you currently have, or are you making extensive upgrades and modifications? And if you are making extensive upgrades and modifications, you have to look at what requirements you may need to satisfy under the Condominium Act in order to proceed with them. Practically speaking, what you may want to do is have information meetings with owners, get their opinions, perhaps give them some samples, take a survey of what owners would like. And assuming you don't have any additional requirements that you need to comply with, you may find it's easy or not so easy solution to effect.
And where you go, our condo is involved in this. We're about to do a major overhaul of the corridors, the doors, and everything else. And the trouble is that with a condominium, you have a lot of people involved, and before you know it, you get bogged down. Everybody has an opinion, and so you're faced with the board having to make some hard decisions, and the majority of the people hopefully going along with it.
Well, yes, it's up to the board at the end of the day that makes a decision as to what you're going to implement and what you're not. Obviously, for good boards and boards that really want to have the input of their owners, they will get the input one way or another, perhaps by some sort of survey or giving them an indication or some sort of sampling of what you're looking at, and you're narrowing it down, and eventually you hope that what you choose is to the liking of most people.
Okay, we have Phyllis from London, and Phyllis, make it quick and just hang on because we're going to come up to a break and we'll pick you up afterwards, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, your question is?
Can a husband and wife serve on the board of directors? And to what extent do condo corporations and property management companies fall under PIPEDA?
Okay.
And on that note, I think we will go to the break.